$2.5 billion have been generated by African American visitors to the Charleston area. In this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down with one person who knows all about this, Kwadjo Campbell. Kwadjo.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good, it's always good seeing you, man.
Always good to see you too, my brother.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
We actually ran into each other here at the College of Charleston Meeting Center last night.
Yes, sir.
And you were actually preparing for today's African American Tourism Conference.
Yes, sir.
And you gave me some good news.
Yes, sir. Well, you know, we've been working on an economic impact study as one of our objectives for the tourism conference. We've been working with the University of South Carolina Smart State Center and Dr. Simon Hudson. And we've got some our results. We've been crunching the numbers, and we've discovered that there's a $2.4 billion impact that African American visitors have on the state of South Carolina. Now, back in 1998, those numbers were about 380 million. So the growth from 380 million to $2.4 billion is significant. And what it says is that, one, a larger number of African Americans are coming to the state, and with the flag coming down and with all the attention coming through the state as it relates to just race and culture, now is the prime time, with these numbers coming out, for the state, local governments, CVB, state government, to invest in product development, invest in the marketing promotion, invest in branding, so that African Americans can come to the state, so other cultures can come to the state and participate and spend their money on African American history and culture.
Yes, indeed.
It's awesome, man. Awesome stuff.
It really is.
26,000 jobs.
Wow.
Yes, 26,000 jobs. That's the impact right now.
Wow.
Absolutely.
And when you look at now to maybe 10 years from now, what do you want that particular impact to be as far as African Americans are concerned here in Charleston?
Well, if we can just grow it by 5%, you know, I think our projected numbers was that the impact would be something like 180 million.
Yeah.
5%.
Yes.
If we just grow at 5%. So I'm hoping that in the next 10 years, that if we can have a 5% growth annually, that in 10 years, man, we're setting at an impact of over $3-4 billion.
Wow. Let me turn to someplace that you really love, and that's the Charleston's East Side.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, as you know, last week the local bylaw closed there. Former State Senator Robert Ford actually called it genocide, and you have a lot of people on Facebook saying a lot of other adjectives to describe that situation. When you think of the closing of bylaw, what goes to your mind, Kwadjo?
Okay, a number of things.
Please.
So, I disagree with Senator Ford in calling it genocide. Rwanda is genocide. Murdering, raping, you know, that is, when we think of genocide, you know, we're talking about the killing and the murder of Jews and gas shippers. We're talking about that type of situation. Do I find it a horrific situation? Yes. Anytime that people who find it okay or are insensitive to the taking from people who have little or have nothing, it's a sad commentary on our humanity when we do that as a society. I think that that's the issue. Local government is falling asleep as it relates to really trying to mitigate the adverse impacts of all this development. I'm around communities that are rich in a culture and a heritage that is being wiped out. You know, when you look at international nations, and you look at the loss of culture and history and heritage, that's something the UN frowns upon as it relates to human rights. And here we have a whole culture, not in just downtown Charleston, but in the Sea Islands and the surrounding regions, that is being wiped out through economic development and through the insensitivity of local and regional governments to the problem. You know, and so there are solutions. There are solutions that I think is in the long run beneficial for everybody.
Okay.
There are things called community benefit agreements that other cities have implemented, where communities get together with the business community, and they talk about how they can mitigate adverse impacts. And so, yeah, there are things like affordable housing, which is different from workforce housing.
Right.
There are things about for us hiring from the local community. But there's a dialogue that takes place, right? There's a meeting of the mind that takes place, which is healthy for communities. That doesn't take place in Charleston. There's a large segment of our community that cries are being ignored, pain is being ignored, loss of heritage and culture is being ignored, and that is not healthy for our city in the long run. And for a large segment of us, it's not healthy in the short run. Right. But for our community, it's not healthy for Charleston, the one Charleston that is our ideal. It's not healthy for that.
And I don't want to say prophecy, but you actually said this type of thing would happen many years ago, and here it is now. So where are you emotional with that?
It saddens me. It saddens me that we've missed and we continue to miss on opportunities to really be an example for the rest of the nation. We're not the only community dealing with gentrification. We're not the only community dealing with the resurgence of inner cities being popular and being attractive and being a place to be. But we are Charleston. We have a history that's all of our own as it relates to coming together and solving complex issues. And if there is a city in the nation that can solve the diversity issue, the wealth and inequity issue, it's Charleston. But Charleston has to get beyond talk. I had somebody laugh the other day. I said, yeah, Charleston, I love my city, but it's a congenial bastion of racism. I mean, we're very friendly, we're very hospitable. I mean, if you look at the governments, they're very nice. But when it comes to actual affordable housing policy, actual economic inclusion policies, actual economic development policies that impact urban and rural communities in this area, of folks that don't look like the mainstream, it's marginal, if anything.
Yes, indeed.
So we're congenial, but the reality is that there's a strong divide here in Charleston between the haves and the have-nots, and that divide is getting wider, and that's not healthy for our city. So I hope we can come together and do better.
Yes, sir. You talk about pain. Let me take you to Charlotte. Obviously, there's still protesters and debates about the shooting and ultimate killing of Keith Scott. He was involved with a shooting with a Charlotte Mecklenburg police officer, that is. When you think back to that incident to right now, what is the biggest thing that sticks out in your mind?
That we're so connected as a black community, just as humanity, we're connected, but as a black community, we're really connected. Mr. Scott, family from James Island.
Right.
I've got friends who are personal friends with his family.
Right.
So I mean, it's the same thing. It's open season. It seems on African Americans, not just men, but women and our culture in general, as it relates to law enforcement being able to kill us and not be held accountable. A lot of people like to bring up, well, there are a lot of black on black crime. Yeah, there is. But those gentlemen are held accountable for their actions. And the problem here is no one's being held accountable for actions that are wrong. Killing unarmed men, killing men that are legally carrying guns. As a former Marine, I support the right to bear arms. But as a black man in this country, that means something different for me than it means for another American citizen, and that shouldn't be, not in America. So there's a whole lot about the tenor of the country right now that I'm not comfortable with, that has me upset. The whole idea of a Trump candidacy, people who I respect are supporting Trump. It's just blown my mind. People I would never in a million years. And this is a common story and commentary in the African American community. People running, seeing their friends. Oh my God, you're supporting Trump. You're so sensible. You're so rational. I can't believe you're supporting Trump. But that's the tenor of this country, right now. And I think it's connected to, what's happening with law enforcement and black men being murdered. I think there's a correlation there. Okay. The sentiment that's given rise to a Trump candidacy, and that sentiment that has made it okay for a black man to be murdered in the street by a law enforcement officer, unarmed, unjustified, but it's okay. That's the tenor of the country right now.
And let me turn back here to Charleston. Obviously, you just mentioned us as being one of the friendliest cities around in respects of, accolades that we've gotten and whatnot. But when you think of Walter Scott and Mother Emanuel 1 year later, how would you describe Charleston now?
Charleston has reverted back to what it was pre-Walter Scott, pre-Emanuel. I'll leave it there.
Okay. Well, Kwadjo Campbell, it's always good talking to you. Thank you so much. I appreciate this.
Always good talking to you too, my brother.
I appreciate
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.